think of my hat? Well, today is an incredibly special day. It's the 8th of May and it's the day we remember the end of the Second World War, which was 75 years ago. How long ago is that? A long, long time. And that's when peace was restored in England and across the world. The end of a war which nearly every country in the world was involved with. Now there's a lady who comes to our church who used to be a teacher at Exeter Road, and she can remember having a party in the street when it was 75 years ago, and she's lent me something so special. Can you see? Let me unwrap it. It's actually a flag from 75 years ago. How special is that? And as a nation in England today and in the UK and across Europe, we're celebrating and we're saying, thank you, God, for the end of the Second World War. Thank you that you protected us and thank you that you kept us safe. Now, my granddad, so that's Morgabble's great-granddad, he was in the Navy in the Second World War. And so my dad, as a little boy, he went to London today on the 8th. And it was his first time ever to go on a train. He was very excited to see the end. Isn't that amazing? And so I've got my hard hat on because that's what people would have used in the Second World War to keep them safe. And you know, we're looking at Psalm 23 together, aren't we? We've had verse 1, we've had verse 2. Let me put the flag down. And now in verse 3, it says, God restores my soul. How amazing is that? The day we're looking at VE Day, 75 years of peace. Also, we're looking how God can give us peace or restore us inside. Now, that's a difficult word, to restore. What does it mean to restore? Well, if you're in Japan, and we're not in Japan, we're in England, but if you were in Japan, there's a word called kinsigo. I hope I've pronounced it correctly. I probably haven't, but something like that. And if something gets broken, last week we broke a mug. It fell off the cupboard, went clunk on the floor, and then pyong, everywhere. There was bits everywhere. But if you were in Japan, if it was a special mug, you'd pick up the pieces and you'd put it back together again. And instead of using glue, you would use glue which was mixed with gold. And so when the precious cup or mole or whatever it is which is broken is put back together again, you can see the lines of where it had been broken. And if there's a little chip where you can't find that bit of china, that would be there as well. And so to begin with, you'd have a cup. My cup would be fantastic. I'd be able to use it. Pyong on the floor. And if I'd restored it like this, you'd be able to see that it had been put back together again, because you'd be able to see all the lines where it had got broken, and they would be a gold colour. And in Japanese, there's a charity who works like this, and what they say is, which is fantastic, is that when something's restored, it's got a story. It's the story of when my cup went on the floor and went pyong. We had to pick up all the pieces and put it back together again. It has a story, and that story is really important. It's so important. We remember today, 75 years. We don't take it for granted. We say thank you. We say thank you that peace was restored in this country. It's also important that we say thank you to God, because he promises us to restore or put back together all the bits on the inside. Now, you've got a story, no matter how old you are. What happened when you were year 1? What happened when you were year 2? What happened when you were year 3? For me, I've got to go on lots of years till I get to my age now. That's my story. If Morgabble was here and you asked him his story's different to my story. My story is I was born to David and Thelma Heyman, and I was born in what is Waitrose now in Exeter. So I was born in the hospital there. For Morgabble, We don't know where he was born. We do know that he was found and then he was taken in a police car to an orphanage. And at the orphanage, he waited 2 years and then we were able to adopt him and have him in our family. And so his story is different to my story. We've all got our own stories. And sometimes Mogabo gets sad in his heart and he says, I wish I knew who my real mum was. I wish I knew who my real dad was. And then he has to pray to God and say, Jesus, you know my story. You know my real mum. You know my real dad. And you know the people whose home I live in and call mum and dad. And I trust you with my story. Now he has to do that when he feels sad. I have to do that when I feel sad, because sometimes at the moment we do feel a bit sad. We feel like, what on earth is going on with this virus? Can't do all the things we normally can. And we want everything to get restored, to be like it was before. But God promises in our hearts that he will help us and he will restore. So what does he restore? Does he mend our hearts if they're broken? Well, we can't really break our heart physically, can we? No, we can break our heart emotionally, but not physically. So God promises he'll restore peace. Sometimes we're fearful, and God promises that he'll put fear and put peace. He'll take away fear, and put in peace. Sometimes we feel really scared and we're just like, what's going on? And God promises he'll take away the scariness and input peace and his protection again. And just like now, we say thank you that we have peace. 75 years. Thank you that we have protection. We can also know that inside ourselves, because God promises that he will restore us. And verse 3 of Psalm 23 says, he restores my soul or my heart and he leads me. So that leads me to my homework. And you're like, no, Chrissy, not homework. Well, it's a good one today, because it says he guides me in good paths. And so I'd like you to make an obstacle course in your home, in your lounge. And then you need to blindfold somebody else in your household, and they have to either lead them around your obstacle course, and they're not allowed to touch anything on your course, or otherwise you stand at the end of the room and you tell them where to go and they can't see. So you aren't actually leading them, you're explaining to them how to get there. Then the other bit of your homework, you have to go in front of them, hold their hands and physically lead them. And see which one's easier. I bet it's easier to actually lead them than it is to explain to them. And Jesus promises us that he will lead us into something which is good. He wants to protect us, he wants to keep us safe, and he promises that he's with us. Okay, bye until next week. Bye!